New phone. Who this? Welcome to Security Today. We're back for another episode of the Security Today podcast brought to you by your host, Uncle Bear. That's right, Uncle BAER _ on Instagram and Twitter, and at Security Today podcast on Instagram and YouTube. This is the security industry's technician first podcast, bucking all the norms, giving unpaid opinions, and set on providing you the education and brief news highlights that you need to continue to grow and hashtag be the better tech. I, Uncle Bear, aim to be your uncle in security, so give me a like, give me a follow, give me a subscribe to the podcast on all platforms, please, and here we go. Yeah, baby! I'm sure that me saying that only really produces two outcomes, like either a big old smile and for the real ones, as you settle down into the realization that the Security Today podcast is back online, you just know that the world is going to be better now. It's going to be okay that Uncle Bear is back in the podcast seat and video podcast at that. The other guaranteed reaction is that some of you are about to turn the podcast off. But before you do, before you grit your teeth and flip off the CarPlay, you made it this far, baby. You made it this far, okay? So just listen. I know that your unk said that I'd be back Q2 of 2025. And come April, you may have came to the conclusion that you got fooled. And by October, you thought it was all over, right? You checked the Instagram, the IG, no movement. You went to my personal IG and saw that all he really talks about now is memes about privacy and jujitsu, and the era was over. Well, I want you to know that I don't apologize, okay? It's called life, baby. I will also have you know that your dreams, though an ember in the cavern of lost hope, that the bear would fully ever return to talk about physical security, are now fanned into flame by the winds of change. This comes with a changed bear, right? I had a trip of a year, man. Yes, I found jujitsu. So now I can choke whoever I want to, minus anybody else who goes to jujitsu. They're actually really hard to choke. But the common man, better look out. I also changed W-2s, which if you follow me over the 5+ years that I've done this podcast, you will know that happens from time to time. And simply because I wanted a challenge and I wanted to provide better and better for my family unit. And I'm never going to talk to you about my family unit, but you must know that it's the very reason that I do everything that I do. And we'll get into the meat of this episode on what the new focus of this podcast is, how I've revamped and rebranded Black Picket Fence education courses, and in the product highlight, you'll hear of my new job. But for now, let's get to the chit-chat as a Northeast integrator is trying to break ground in a way that I think might produce a little bit of a trend. But first, what do we do? What do we do every single podcast to my OG listeners? We give a shout out to an Instagram handle that you need to be following. I hope you're on Instagram. And if you are, you have to start building that follow list to start feeding you content that makes you better at your career, okay? It can't just be the Latinas and the funny Stranger Things conspiracies, right? No, it has to be something that's making you better. So this week's first back in the booth shout out goes to @Cicada Systems. If you know, you know, and this podcast is technician first, and I'm not talking the LinkedIn desk jockey that spent no time to 1 year in the field before making sure that everything they post about looks sparkly and mentions something regarding AI. I'm talking about the actual people who follow the industry to produce, right? And because of that, IG is a hotbed where I do most of my dealings, mainly because Facebook is literal trash. Snapchat is for 14-year-olds. And TikTok, well, you know why that is. And if you don't stay a while, and maybe if you do stay a while and dig into some old podcasts, you'll figure that out. But every single week, we drop a shout out, and it's someone that you should be following on Instagram, and it's someone that with a little bit of their content in your feed every single day, you're going to be growing towards the 10,000 hours of mastery that it takes to master something in your life. This week, and for the show relaunch, I would be remiss if not to mention one of the single greatest homies that I've ever met on Instagram, having hung out with this dude in person and is a weekly, if not monthly, phone call to Frankie Salyer with Cicada Systems. So at Cicada Systems on Instagram, you'll get stories that are masterclasses in everything from troubleshooting panels, excellently installing access control door hardware, and how to correctly wire and solder and heat shrink electrified hinges. That's a good one. So good, you know? So good. So go give him a like and a follow and send him a little bug emoji to let you know that I put this little bug in your ear on the Security Today podcast. And let me just say, after a week or two of following him, you're welcome. But let's get into the chit chat. Chimera Integrations has launched a cybersecurity reseller program tailored for physical security integrators. Got your ear? Building off its recent acquisition last year with Alchemy Core to integrate cyber offerings into its portfolio. Chimera acquired Alchemy Core to anchor its cyber protection initiative and serve as a base for cybersecurity reseller arm. Alchemy Core acts as like an MSSP, a managed security service provider, similar to an MSP, but with a security focus. And in their words, their vision is to be trusted partner for organizations seeking innovative, integrated security solutions that protect against today's most sophisticated threats. We envision a future where businesses feel empowered to grow, innovate, and thrive, knowing that their assets, their data, and their people are safe. With Alchemy Core integrated, Chimera is preparing to roll out a cybersecurity reseller program that aims at helping security integrators offer cyber solutions. I've talked a lot on this podcast, not in 2025, I know, but about how cybersecurity and physical security are merging more and more every single day. I call it the great smushing. TM, trademark that. You can use it wherever you want. In the great smushing, how all cyber and physical are coming together. And so they saw this, and the first integration was with an existing client, a regional federal credit union that was utilizing DMP for security intrusion and access control, and Eagle Eye Networks for cloud-managed video recorder with online storage, cloud backup, and the free integration of DMP and Eagle Eye. Now, Chimera's Justin Stearns, a co-founder and vice president, elaborates on exactly what this reseller program looks like when he says, our model is simple. Protect and enable security integrators to uphold their significance in the realm of global security. Our approach starts with a mandatory certification of the integrator's cybersecurity posture. Continuing, he says, there are two avenues in which integrators can generate revenue with Alchemy Core, either through our referral partner program or by becoming a certified cyber integrator. Either way, integrators have an easy way to offer a higher level of service with the option to easily incorporate a value-added service at the bottom of every proposal they send out. Cybersecurity services for the end user can cost anywhere from $200 a month to $100,000 per year. It's easy RMR for integrators and a better solution for the end user. I saw this and I wanted to bring it to the Security Today podcast because I think educating integrators is the way forward in providing excellent security around the world. So coming with a certification where you get educated in your cybersecurity posture and how you're posing that towards your clients is a necessity with where we're going. So I just want to know, what sort of cybersecurity protocols are you and your company following currently? And is your company educating not just the company on cybersecurity with your little phishing emails, but the technicians as well in this is how cybersecurity posture should look when we're installing this system? This move aligns with a broader trend of convergence between physical and cybersecurity, that great smushing. So I just think that it's something that catches on in a myriad of fashions for integrators to start using, and I love how he puts it at the bottom of every quote that goes out. You have an offering to say, hey, we can take a more a more excellent cybersecurity approach as we put in your physical security as well, because they're going to start expecting you as the physical security integrator to understand security in a broader light and not let them down on their cyber side either. So check that out. On to the product highlights. Hanwha Vision. All right. Now, if you know my past a little bit, I've been an integrator for a long time. I've owned my own integrator company for a while in the early days, and I was an install tech, a service tech, and I ended up in the last 5 years being an engineer who puts together projects and gets them, quote, ready to send out. And I have used Hanwha Vision for a really long time. That's my go-to camera that I was telling people this is what I use, especially in the days of Hikvision coming out with their backdoors and their NDAA non-compliance. So I would point people to Hanwha Vision a ton because, for instance, their A series punches Hikvision's Race to the Bottom right in the face without the vulnerability, and they come with like a super compact flat eye 3mm fixed lens IR up to 20 meters, WDR at 120 decibels, IP67, IK10. It's only going to run an integrator around $125 to put an A-series camera in. And that's just product cost, not the installation cost. But you get what I'm trying to say is that they actually provide you a cyber secure and quality camera at the same cost that you could be putting it in. And this is a North American perspective, so, you know, I'm sorry if you're not in North America. I'm sure it's different around the world. And I've talked to guys on Instagram who are in different countries who are like, I just can't swing this. I have to use this, that, and the other. And it's a conversation to have. But at the end of the day, Hanwha cameras, needless to say, they've got it all, right? All the way up to they go from that low end all the way up to like their X&P C9. I mean, let's just say this. Look, Hanwha's got it made, okay? And yeah, I'm biased. I was biased before I started working for them, but I'm biased still today. Hanwha finally did it. They built the prototype and the roadmap in the shadows for access control, and now they're dropping the best access control on the market that's going to change the game. It's called On Cafe. Weird name, but Curry's missed a 3 or a 2 every now and then, right? And I do like coffee, so I can get past it. But it stands for controlled access for everyone, which that's the key mission. The key feature here is that it's a WiseNet integration, meaning that it fully and seamlessly integrates with WiseNet Wave and their new on-cloud product coming out. It's built on the WiseNet Wave is built on NX Witness platform, which I've talked about on this podcast, and it allows real-time events, accessing door unlocks from camera views, bookmarking, mobile notifications, visitor management, not mustering, and other things that are in the like. Now, they have it free for 6 doors and under in their entry guard, and you can grow it to enterprise levels. They've recently dropped a 1 and 2 door IP controller that comes over Cat 6 PoE++ that can run wet relays, and it has a direct UL listed fire relay in the controller itself, and it's not Mercury. This is a big move with a lot of potential. Now, I promise I do write some of this stuff unbiased, but I am also biased, like I said, because the small but highly effective team behind growing the next access control player in the space includes ya boy, okay? That's right. My new employment that happened at the end of last year is indeed with Hanwha Vision, and I'll be directly working on their access control platform as a product manager. This is great news, because you already know the premise of my career is to bring the technician to the forefront and provide the perspective that the industry often lacks. So I get to ask the OGs, baby. I've always been here for the discussion and the growth of the industry, so your input can go directly towards something that now we engage on together and produces a real product. I'm honest, I don't beat around the bush, and while sometimes in the right crowd I hold my tongue to keep peace, I'm never going to be directly approached and not give my honest opinion. An opinion that can be changed and educated, as you have seen it in the last 5 years over this podcast. I'm open to growth and education. So please stay tuned for more updates and start putting the access control in from Hanwha right meow, because you can get it right meow. And I think that it's an excellent product, and it's got a ton of potential, and it looks really good on the software side. So that's the product highlight, is a product that I'm directly in relation with. Now, I will say this. Hanwha does not support this podcast. They're not a sponsor. They're not in any way affiliated or tied to the opinions and the things that I say on this podcast. So let's just keep that on the record, so that when the next punch I throw has nothing to do with Hanwha, has everything to do with Bayer. But we can lead that into the meat. If you remember, this podcast goes chit chat, product highlight, and the meat. And so we're going to get into the meat right now. I'm back, So I've been considering for about a half a year how to get this thing back off the ground. And I want to talk about the new podcast focus and the same IDGAF attitude that has always come with it. Obviously, this is the restart of a podcast that I've participated and kept alive for, if you count the recording time, really just over 5 years now. I'm sure that if you've listened before, you've heard the genesis, but I needed it. I needed a podcast when I was a road tech and I was driving 18 plus hours a week, thinking to myself, how do I start to advance my career? I was on the road. At that point, Drake only really got me so far before I was tired of listening to music and I wanted to listen to something. I would go to look for security podcasts, and cybersecurity podcasts were a dime a dozen. You could find 27 just with one search, right? But physical security podcasts, back when I was looking for a podcast, there was only really like 2 or maybe 3. And so that's what sat me down, decided that I wanted to start reporting and giving the technicians that are out there also on the road the chance to hear highlights, to hear news, to hear thoughts, and to hear dreams about what the security industry could be. And that's exactly what I did. So I want to talk about the mission of this podcast for a second. It has been, and it will always be, to inform, instruct, and indulge the security technician. That was what I created in the beginning, and that is what the podcast mission will still continue to be. So I want to inform, and the heart of what I call the OG broadcast, which is you're listening to right now, the weekly podcast that comes out with product highlights, chit chat, and the meat. This is the heart of it. As a technician, it's hard to stay up on the information that's floating around the industry because it's, in the magazines and the emails that the technician never sees. So your boy goes and gets the info. He crams it into hopefully around a 30-minute once a week podcast, and I get you the info. I understand it's the same idea as like the mechanic doesn't want to come home and work on their car, right? So this was a passion for me beyond just my career, to be passionate about security and privacy. And because of that, it's led to me making sure I get that information from newsletters and magazines and, the websites and stuff like that. And now I can just bring it here and pack it into 30 minutes, and you're better for it, and I'm better for it, and we both win. The second thing is to instruct. So on another major blight in our industry, education is lacking, right? You got 3 kind of modal forms, which is the organizational education, the manufacturer education, and then this independent education that is pretty much non-existent as of today. There are some out there doing it and getting it started, but it's still a really weak pillar. So instruction on how to design, instruction on how to integrate, what parts and pieces work together. We do that here and through the Security Podcast, and we also do it through a Security Today podcast arm at BeTheBetterTech.com. It used to be Black Picket Fence, but I've rebranded it as BeTheBetterTech.com, and right now we have our access control wiring course that you can go take that's still branded as Black Picket Fence, but the information is all good in there, and you can learn everything from wiring access control, what a circuit is, how circuits work, how relays work, what are those in relation to security hardware, and how those things can sit on a system in the correct way. So you can go get that course, learn that right now. But that's part of the mission, is to instruct. Also to indulge, because we all love good tech, good drama, a host of that is a bit edgy and dashingly handsome. And that is where I make sure that it's not just information or instruction, but I'm bringing you the good, right? From the industry that tickles your fancy, tech, cool gadgets, shout outs of people who are doing cool things and excellent things. And you have to like what you do, but you have to feel like you know about what you like to like it more, right? Okay, so I want to give you this thing that you bring to the guys Wednesday morning, and they think, damn, this dude knows what he's talking about. This is great information. Thanks for sharing that podcast. So that's the mission. Inform, instruct, indulge. That's what I'm here to do. Hopefully we'll get some of that in 2026. Now, the vision. I continue to intend to do video interviews. Those will start up here in a month or two. And Security Today has several different interview platform directions, like several different series of interviews that help continue to round out the security professional. This helps the vision of pursuing the industry forward in excellence through a podcast. I want this podcast to be something that reaches far, wide, and deep into the integrators that make up the global security professionals. And making sure that people all over the world, and definitely here in the States, are continuing to be the better tech and maybe become just a little bit more excellent today than yesterday because they heard some perspectives that, help them grow. So there's 3 major series that I intend to bring back, and that's The Room Where It Happens. This is where we bring in thought leaders and industry icons to hear a brief story of how they got into the industry and what their take is on the industry, and then where it's going and what to look out for and what they think it will become, because that's information that we can kind of digest and start to, really form how we move within our career. Also, I'm going to bring back Bid to Bank, my absolute favorite segment, where we have an integrator or an integrator owner on the podcast to walk us through their process from bid to bank, showing that everybody does things differently, but there are nuggets that you can pull from to mimic to help your company get stronger, to help your role within your company get stronger. The final one is the Security Dojo. The Security Dojo is a segment where we go to the hardware and the software that make up our installs. Sometimes it's on the bench here with a downward pointing camera, and where we're physically hacking locks. We have a Security Dojo out right now on bypassing locks that you can go watch on YouTube. And other times it's interviews and testing of equipment to show how it works in the field or how it integrates. That's the intention behind that. So this is the great recentering, right, that we're doing right at the beginning of relaunching this podcast in 2026. This podcast took a well-needed break, but as we come back with a sharper intention and some future goals, the point is to execute the mission and the vision for you. That's right, the security professional. It's hard to steer the ship. It takes time. It takes capacity. And it is not my paycheck. In fact, as of right now, no money comes from it. But it is my passion. And I want to make sure that this is in front of you so that you can get better, because building it to get in front of you is making me better. So it really is a win-win. Now, it's not forever. I don't intend this podcast to last forever. It'll shape, it'll morph. We're going to get through 2026. That's the commitment, but we'll see where it goes from there. And I hope that it gets into a place where it is long-term. It is a long-term podcast that really helps the industry move forward. Also, it only does that if you spread it. I can spread it all I want, but it's kind of me yelling into the front of an intercom. It doesn't do anything with me putting mass effort into getting it viewed. It will only spread if the word is passed on by you to help it grow. So please share, please please just tell your friends. You don't have to DM me and be like, look, man, that was awesome. That does help, no kidding, but if anything, just tell your other employees that you're listening to it. Tell your boss that you're listening to it. Tell the other integrators that you are in a mastermind with that you're listening to it. Spread the information. That way, there can be more resources poured into it, and it can get even better over time. Look, I'm at 25 minutes, baby. That's what I'm telling you. It's under 30 minutes. It's not the 3-hour podcast that you didn't want to listen to anyway. Now you have to listen to in chunks. You're probably arriving at work right now, and that's what I'm talking about. So that's it for the Security Today podcast. Remember to follow at Cicada Systems on Instagram, and don't forget that this podcast is hosted, edited, ran, and created and built by me and me alone, your uncle in security, Uncle Bear. DM me at Uncle BAER _ or at Security Today podcast on Instagram. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your stories. I want to know your resources. I want to know if you're installing anything that I've talked about, or if you are installing something I haven't talked about that I can bring to the podcast. If you ever have tried anything that I mentioned, I want to know. Please let me know. And this podcast is driven by interactions with fantastic technicians on Instagram and industry players on LinkedIn. And as you know, I'm hooking you up with the resources. So go follow at Be The Better Tech on Instagram, the Security Today podcast educational arm, where I try to bring you the education that will continue to grow too, that you need to further your career and secure the world. We'll see you next time on Security Today podcast. We back, baby. Oh, we back. Man. Ain't you excited? I'm excited.